They say opportunity knocks when we least expect it, except sometimes it arrives with a menacing grin and a command to perform. Maya Sullivan, a struggling waitress at the illustrious Bridgewater estate, never dreamed she would face such a moment. When the estate's millionaire owner, James Lockhart, demands she play the grand piano at his opulent party, no one expects anything more than a cheap spectacle at her expense. But behind Mia's calloused hands and tired eyes lies a hidden gift that will leave everyone at the party speechless. Tonight, under glittering chandeliers and watchful eyes, Mia's life is about to change forever. Mia Sullivan was used to juggling trays in dimly lit restaurants and dusty diners, but nothing prepared her for Bridgewater Estate. The sprawling mansion stood behind tall iron gates at the edge of a pristine lake. Stories circulated around town. This was the home of James Lockhart, a mysterious millionaire who had risen from relative obscurity to unimaginable wealth in just a few years. The rumor mill churned with tales of cutthroat deals, lavish parties, and a personality as cold as the marble floors in his grand foyer. Mia first encountered Bridgewater Estate on a stormy Thursday afternoon. She'd just finished a shift at a cramped cafe in downtown Exeter, her apron soaked from spilled coffee, her morale even more drenched than her uniform. The bus had broken down, forcing her to walk home along a winding country road. Rain pelted her shoulders. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and she realized with a sinking heart that she had forgotten her umbrella in the cafe's back closet. Headlights pierced the gloom. A sleek black sedan pulled up beside her. The passenger window slid down to reveal a man in a tailored suit, his expression unreadable. He was older, late 40s perhaps, yet with a regal bearing that suggested authority. Mia wasn't one to accept rides from strangers, but the storm had soaked her to the bone. Even so, she stepped back warily. "Need a lift?" he asked, voice echoing over the din of the storm. She hesitated, but the chill in her bones convinced her otherwise. "Yes, thank you." The stranger opened the door. It was only once she settled inside, water dripping from her hair onto the leather seats, that she noticed the embroidered initials JL on the driver's cuff. James Lockhart, the man who owned half the county, or so people said, sat calmly exuding a sense of control that made Mia's heart flutter. Rumors described him as aloof, temperamental, even cruel, but in that moment he was her savior from the storm. He asked a few polite questions: where she worked, where she was headed. Mia answered, mindful to reveal little. She told him her name, that she waitressed at multiple places around town. She omitted her side gigs cleaning offices and occasionally playing old show tunes at a rundown lounge for tips. Despite her caution, something about Lockhart's piercing gaze made her believe he knew more than she was telling. The journey ended abruptly when he dropped her a short walk from her modest apartment. She offered her thanks, but Lockhart only nodded, eyes lingering on her as though assessing something unseen. The sedan disappeared into the storm, leaving Mia with a new enigma, a ride from James Lockhart himself. A week later, Mia was scraping by on tips at the cafe when a well-dressed woman walked in. The woman introduced herself as Victoria Whitley, an assistant to Mr. Lockhart. With crisp efficiency, she offered Mia a temporary contract to serve at the next grand event at Bridgewater Estate. The pay was generous, more than Mia typically made in a month. The woman's tone conveyed that this was less an offer than a directive. Refusing would be unwise. Mia said yes, without hesitation. She needed the money. There was no denying the desperation that strangled her finances. Her mother's medical bills lingered, rent soared, and her younger sister needed new school supplies. If Lockhart's people wanted her to waitress at a fancy party, so be it. The only question that haunted her: why her on the night of the party? Mia arrived by taxi, stepping out onto a circular driveway lined with ornate lanterns. She wore a crisp white shirt, black slacks, and shoes polished to a dull gleam. The mansion was lit like a fairy tale castle, but the hush around it felt ominous. Footmen in immaculate suits directed her in, where she joined a small army of servers, receiving last-minute instructions from a stern-faced man named Adam Foley, the estate's head of staff. "Everything must be perfect," Foley barked. "Mr. Lockhart has important guests. You drop a single glass or forget a single hors d'oeuvre, you're done." His gaze zeroed in on Mia, recalling her face from a picture Victoria had shown him. "Keep your wits about you." The main hall dazzled with golden chandeliers and polished marble floors. Guests began trickling in, wearing designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. Mia moved among them like a ghost, unseen unless needed. She balanced trays of champagne flutes, weaving around clusters of socialites, discussing stock portfolios and rumored acquisitions. She overheard mentions of names like Rachel Henderson, a prominent art dealer, and Donovan Riley, a reclusive venture capitalist. Their presence testified to Lockhart's considerable sway. Somewhere in the swirl, she caught sight of James Lockhart himself, towering near a fireplace, speaking to a group of admirers. He wore a midnight blue suit that seemed cut from the night sky, and though he was surrounded by people, there was a cold detachment in his demeanor. His eyes, like shards of onyx, swept across the room. For a fleeting instant, their gazes met. A chill ran through Mia. She sensed that he remembered their encounter in the rain. How could he forget? She also sensed that her presence here was not a coincidence. Hours passed in a blur of clinking glasses and hushed conversations. Mia's feet ached, but she pressed on, determined to earn every cent. Then, unexpectedly, the party's energy shifted. The chatter simmered into a pregnant silence. A hush fell as James Lockhart strode to the center of the room, lifting a hand for attention. "Friends, colleagues, esteemed guests," he began. "Your presence makes this evening exceptional, but I'd like to add a special touch. We have among our staff tonight a waitress who has another hidden talent. Mia Sullivan." Her name echoed in the hush, and a prickle of alarm shot through her. She was in the midst of pouring wine into crystal goblets when all eyes turned her way. Heart pounding, Mia set down the bottle and forced a neutral expression. There had to be some mistake. Lockhart's gaze locked onto hers. "Mia," he said, beckoning her forward. "Come here, please." She stepped forward, confusion roiling inside her. Blood rushed to her cheeks. It felt as though the entire world had narrowed to one spot, her reflection in Lockhart's inscrutable eyes. "I happened to discover," Lockhart announced, "that this young woman is not just adept at balancing trays. She's also a piano player." Shock rippled through the crowd. A few people murmured politely, others raised eyebrows, curious. Mia's throat went dry. How did Lockhart know about her piano playing? She had performed only in a dingy lounge under a pseudonym, plus a handful of local bars that never asked for her real name. Word must have traveled, or perhaps he'd recognized her from somewhere. Either way, she was cornered. "Mia, you'll treat us to a piece, won't you?" Lockhart's tone was deceptively cordial, but Mia sensed the underlying steel. This was not a request. It was an order. A wave of panic and humiliation washed over her. She scanned the room, meeting the curious or dismissive gazes of wealthy strangers. Could she refuse? Probably not without losing the job and the much-needed pay. The hush pressed in on her until she couldn't breathe. Lockhart gestured toward a grand piano near the corner of the hall, a stunning Steinway with gilded edges. The air felt static as Mia approached the piano, a lamb stepping onto a stage of wolves. Her heart hammered in her chest. She took a seat, her reflection staring back at her from the polished surface of the piano's black lid. Time seemed to slow, each breath a painful reminder of how trapped she was. Yet, as her fingers hovered above the keys, something flickered inside her, an echo of the love she once had for music. The memory of her mother's proud smile when she'd first played Für Elise, the sense of peace that overcame her whenever her fingertips danced on ivory. She shut her eyes and began. The first notes were hesitant, trembling like a fawn's first steps. But then, Mia found her footing. The melody swelled, a gentle wave building into a crest. It was Debussy's Clair de Lune, a piece that demanded both delicate control and emotional depth. Mia played with clarity and tenderness that seemed at odds with the tension in the room. And in that moment, the chatter, the snickers, the condescending stares all receded. She was lost in the music, shaping the notes into a living story. The piece soared with heartbreak and hope, each chord resonating in the hush. When the final note faded, the silence was absolute. Mia's eyes opened to see Jaws' slack glasses suspended in mid-air. Every guest looked stunned, as though a hidden wonder of the world had just revealed itself. Applause erupted thunderous and unrestrained. For an instant, Mia basked in it. Then a glance at James Lockhart's face reminded her that she was still at his mercy. He alone had orchestrated this spectacle. She wondered if her performance had earned his approval, or if this was merely the prologue to something more dangerous. The applause crescendoed, and then conversations resumed with an electric buzz. Mia felt dizzy, as though she had stepped off a cliff. She left the piano nodding politely at the compliments that rushed her way. Some guests reached out to shake her hand or express astonishment. "Stunning," said one. "Marvelous," said another. James Lockhart drifted through the throng, parting onlookers like a silent tide until he reached Mia. His eyes gleamed with a peculiar satisfaction. "I see I was right," he said quietly. "You have real talent." Mia swallowed her fear. "Thank you for the opportunity, sir," she managed, unsure if it was gratitude or resentment that laced her words. Lockhart studied her for a moment as if reading a puzzle. "I have a proposal for you," he said. "Not here. Meet me in the library after the guests have left. We'll discuss it privately." He walked away without another word, leaving Mia trembling. A dozen questions gnawed at her. Was he offering a job? A scholarship? Or was this some twisted game? She was too rattled to pass the meaning. She went back to serving, though now the gaze of every guest weighed heavily on her. The unveiling of her piano skills had catapulted her from invisible waitress to an object of fascination and gossip. Hours later, the party began to wind down. Guests slowly filtered out, reeling from the night's revels. The staff cleaned up champagne flutes and scattered plates, vacuuming shards of conversation from underfoot. Mia avoided Lockhart's eyes, but her mind kept drifting to the library doors at the far end of the corridor. Eventually, the estate quieted. Adam Foley discharged the other waitstaff, but gave Mia an odd look when she lingered. "You can go," he said. "Your contract is complete." Mia mustered her courage. "Mr. Lockhart asked me to stay." Foley's lips pressed into a thin line. He nodded and left without further comment, leaving her alone in the silent corridor. Shadows loomed cast by the dimmed chandeliers. Mia approached the double doors of the library, each breath fluttering in her chest. Inside the room was a study in opulence. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a roaring fireplace, and a plush rug that swallowed footsteps. Lockhart stood by a mahogany desk sipping a tumbler of amber liquid. He gestured for Mia to come closer. "Sit," he instructed, pointing to a leather armchair. She obeyed, heart thumping. The library's warmth felt suffocating. "You play like someone who's been trained," Lockhart said, swirling the liquid in his glass. "Where did you learn?" "My mother taught me," Mia replied carefully. She was a self-taught pianist who loved classical pieces. Lockhart nodded, stepping away to set his glass on a side table. "No formal training." She shook her head. "We never had the money. My mother used old piano books from thrift stores. When she fell ill, I dropped out of community college to work. Still, I kept playing whenever I could. Cheap keyboards, old pianos in bars. It's my one real passion." His gaze flickered as though weighing her sincerity. "I appreciate honesty. So here it is. You impressed not just me, but many of my guests tonight. Some of them are important figures in the arts world. They've asked about you, and I sense an opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" Mia asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. He leaned against the edge of the desk, crossing his arms. "I want you to play at my gatherings, cultural events, private dinners. I'll pay you more than what you earn juggling trays. In return, you'll be exclusive to me. You won't perform for any other local venue without my permission." Mia's brow furrowed. The deal smelled of control. "Why me? Surely you can hire a professional pianist from the city." His lips curved into a faint smile. "Because you're unpolished and raw, and there's a mystique in that. A hidden gem. My circle devours novelty, especially when it's discovered by me. You'll make me look good, and in turn I'll provide you with a steady income." She tried to swallow her apprehension. The money could change her life, pay for her mother's medication, help her sister get through high school without worry. Yet the entire arrangement felt like a gilded trap. "What if I decline?" His expression hardened. "Then I can't guarantee your continued employment in my estate or any of the local venues my influence extends to. Your name might even get blacklisted. I'm not a man who likes to be refused, Mia." A chill gripped her. She was keenly aware that Lockhart was used to absolute control. Yet the chance to play real concerts, even if they were just private parties, tugged at the dormant dreams she thought she had buried. She had once aspired to a career in music, but life had battered those hopes. Now, ironically, that dream reappeared courtesy of James Lockhart's manipulations. "All right," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I accept. But I have conditions." One eyebrow quirked, which Mia squared her shoulders, summoning courage. "I want guaranteed hours, guaranteed pay enough for me to support my family. And I want the freedom to practice. If I'm going to play at these events, I can't just wing it." Lockhart studied her faint amusement, lighting his eyes. "Very well. We'll put it in writing. But remember, Mia, once you step into my world, the line between freedom and obligation can blur quickly." She nodded, feeling as though she'd just sold a piece of her soul. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Lockhart's personal lawyer drew up a contract. Mia skimmed it, unsettled by the many clauses granting Lockhart control over her performance schedule and public appearances. But the salary was staggering, a sum she'd once have laughed at for being too grand. With a trembling hand, she signed. Lockhart wasted no time. He announced a small cultural soiree to be held at Bridgewater Estate the next month. Influencers in art business and philanthropy would attend. Mia was to be the star performer. His staff cleared out a sunlit corner room on the second floor, installing a baby grand piano. That was her practice space. Whenever she wasn't practicing, she was to help with minor housekeeping tasks. Lockhart claimed it was to maintain her humility, but she suspected he just liked having her under his thumb. As the event drew closer, Lockhart scheduled private sessions for Mia to play in front of him, offering critiques as though he were a connoisseur. Sometimes his feedback was blunt. "You missed a note in measure 28, or more legato there, less staccato." Other times his criticisms felt personal. "Don't scrunch your face. You look unrefined," or "No one wants to see you sweat." "Control your expression." Mia swallowed her pride, focusing on the silver lining. She was getting paid enough to send her mother to a better clinic, and her sister's tuition was secure. If she had to endure Lockhart's condescension, so be it. Yet a knot tightened in her stomach each day. She sensed there was more to him than he let on, some darker purpose for showcasing her. The staff tiptoed around him too. She saw how Adam Foley flinched at Lockhart's presence, or how Victoria Whitley adopted an unyielding politeness laced with fear. One evening, after a grueling rehearsal, Mia slumped at the piano. Through the open window, she heard the distant chirping of crickets, a gentle reminder that a world existed beyond Bridgewater's gilded walls. She was startled by footsteps. Eleanor Barnes, one of the senior housekeepers, entered, carrying fresh linens. "You should rest," Eleanor said kindly. "You've been at it for hours." Mia sighed. "I need to be perfect for tomorrow night, or else—" She didn't finish, but Eleanor nodded understanding. Eleanor set down the linens and lowered her voice. "You're talented, Mia. Real talented. Don't let him break you. He tests people. If they fail, he discards them. If they succeed, he traps them. Either way, he wins, unless you keep your spirit intact." The warning struck a chord. "Has he done this before? I mean, singled out staff?" Eleanor's gaze flitted to the door, making sure no one listened. Over the years, Mr. Lockhart's had a fascination with discovering potential. Some say he invests in them. Others say he manipulates them. Just be careful, dear. You have something he wants. Mia's skin prickled. She recalled that day in the rain, the sensation of being sized up. Now she was locked in Lockhart's orbit. She silently vowed to escape before she became just another trophy on his shelf. The night of the cultural soiree arrived. The mansion gleamed under a canopy of stars, its windows ablaze with light. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Mia, clad in a simple yet elegant gown provided by Lockhart's tailor, hovered backstage in a small alcove. Through the door, she glimpsed a sea of luminaries gathered in the main hall, socialites, artists, potential investors. A private invitation from James Lockhart was gold, and no one wanted to miss an event rumored to hold captivating surprises. Nerves fluttered in Mia's stomach. She wiped damp palms on her gown. The first half of the evening featured a cocktail hour, an art display from Lockhart's personal collection, and a mini auction for a local charity. Then came the highlight, Mia's piano recital. Although she was no stranger to performing in modest lounges, the gravity of Lockhart's crowd intimidated her. These were people with real influence. One misstep, and her fresh reputation could shatter. As she waited, she recognized a few notable faces. Michael Harrington, a prominent conductor from New York, chatted with an acclaimed violinist. Amelia Peters, an heiress turned patron of the arts, glided in, a shimmering dress. Even Daniel Ramirez, a well-known music critic whose reviews could make or break a budding musician, sipped champagne in a corner. Mia's heart throbbed. This was bigger than any stage she'd ever dreamed of. She felt a hand on her shoulder and whirled to see James Lockhart. He wore a black tuxedo exuding authority. "Don't disappoint me," he said low enough for only her to hear. "The entire evening hinges on your performance." No pressure, she thought bitterly, but she forced a calm nod. When the moment came, Lockhart ascended a small platform and quieted the crowd with a raised palm. Spotlights dimmed, focusing on the grand piano. Mia stepped forward, every step echoing in her mind. She took her seat, inhaled, and began. She started with Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, letting the gentle melancholic opening flow through her. Soon the music swelled, carrying the audience into an emotional tide. There was a hush so profound that Mia could have heard her own heartbeat, if not for the piano's swirling notes. Next came an original composition, a soft, haunting melody she had created when her mother was first diagnosed, channeling hope and despair. The unexpected choice of playing her own piece felt like an act of rebellion. Lockhart hadn't approved it. But something pushed her forward, a need to claim her own artistry. The final chord faded. Silence. Then applause thundered, ricocheting off marble walls. Mia stood breathless, cheeks flushed. She saw tears glistening in the eyes of some spectators. Even Daniel Ramirez, the stern critic, looked impressed. As the applause continued, Lockhart emerged with a placid smile. He gripped Mia's hand and raised it high, bathing in the reflected glory. The rest of the soirée was a blur of congratulations, business cards pressed into her hand, and the effusive praise of people who suddenly seemed desperate to know her. Mia glimpsed Lockhart, speaking quietly with a circle of potential investors. She heard them mention her name. A flutter of unease gripped her. Was she to be paraded as an asset in Lockhart's next deal? Still, she couldn't help but revel in the moment. She was recognized for her talent, not just a waitress in a cheap uniform. Surrounded by a swirl of admirers, Mia found one pair of eyes that quietly stood apart. Rachel Henderson, an art dealer known for her eye for untapped genius. Rachel offered a subtle nod, a smile that seemed genuinely impressed, not merely opportunistic. For a short, shining moment, Mia felt hope. If she could navigate Lockhart's labyrinth, maybe she could carve out a path toward genuine artistry. The days following the soirée were both exhilarating and suffocating. Overnight, Mia Sullivan became a small sensation within Lockhart's circles. She received invitations from other estate owners to perform at intimate gatherings. A notable music director suggested an audition with his chamber orchestra. Even a local news outlet wanted to profile her. But each inquiry had to filter through Lockhart's office. That was the deal. Mia quickly discovered the labyrinthine nature of Lockhart's protection. If an invitation benefited his image or business deals, it was approved. If it risked overshadowing his own brand, it was quietly declined. He explained it with a condescending smile. "We must be strategic with your appearances, Mia. We can't dilute the impact." What stung most was that some of these declines were for legitimate artistic opportunities, chances Mia would have jumped at. But Lockhart insisted on controlling her upward trajectory. She felt like a gilded bird fed luscious seeds, but never allowed to fly freely. Meanwhile, her family situation improved. The new income allowed better care for her mother, who showed signs of recovery. Her sister no longer dreaded each new school expense. Mia clung to that silver lining whenever Lockhart's control felt suffocating. One day, while practicing in the upstairs piano room, she received a surprise visitor. Rachel Henderson stepped inside, escorted by a wary Adam Foley. "Ms. Henderson insisted on seeing you," Foley murmured, then left. Rachel wore a refined pantsuit, her auburn hair pinned in a sleek chignon. "May I listen for a moment?" she asked softly. Mia nodded, feeling both curious and cautious. She played a segment of a Mozart sonata. Rachel closed her eyes, seemingly absorbing every note. When Mia finished, Rachel smiled. "I have an art gallery event next month, featuring cross-disciplinary pieces, bridging visual art and live music. I want you to be a part of it. Would you consider playing?" Mia's pulse quickened. "I'd love to, but I need to check with Mr. Lockhart." Rachel's smile faded. She walked closer, voice low. "I respect James, but I also know how controlling he can be. Listen, if you ever feel trapped, know that there are others who see your worth. I can open doors for you that aren't controlled by him." Heat rose in Mia's cheeks. Gratitude and anxiety warred in her chest. "Thank you truly. I might need that. But for now, I have to respect my contract." Rachel nodded, placing a business card on the piano. "If anything changes, call me." When Rachel left, Mia sat there, the card trembling in her hand. A route of escape beckoned, but it was lined with pitfalls. Lockhart would not let her go easily. Still, a seed of rebellion sprouted in her heart. There had to be a way to break the invisible chains while keeping her family safe. 3 weeks later, Lockhart called Mia into his office, a lavish space with high windows framing the lake. She arrived to find him seated behind a massive desk, scanning a document. Victoria Whitley hovered near a bookshelf, her expression unreadable. "You wanted to see me?" Mia asked. Lockhart motioned for her to take a seat. He lifted a letter from his desk. "I've just received a notice from Rachel Henderson inviting you to participate in her gallery event. Why am I only hearing about this now?" Mia's throat constricted. She stopped by the estate. "I told her I'd pass the information to you. You told me nothing." "I was waiting for the right time." Mia fumbled. "I wasn't sure if it conflicted with your schedule." Lockhart's eyes glinted dangerously. "My schedule is your schedule, and you don't audition for events behind my back." Mia bristled at his wording. "I didn't audition. She heard me play and wanted me to be part of a show. That's all." He slammed the letter onto the desk, rattling a crystal paperweight. "I told you from the start, you perform at my discretion. Your sudden popularity is no accident. I orchestrated your success here, and I won't have you throwing it away on half-baked gallery shows." Rage flared. "It's not half-baked," she retorted. "Rachel Henderson is well respected. It's a chance for me to showcase my music independently." Lockhart's face darkened. For a moment, Mia feared he might lash out physically, but he only smiled coldly. "Independently? That word doesn't exist in our agreement. If you persist with this talk of independence, you'll find yourself back where you started. Broke unknown, your mother's medical bills piling up. Is that what you want?" Mia trembled with indignation. She envisioned her mother's frail health, her sister's future. Lockhart had his talons deeply embedded in everything that mattered to her. "No," she whispered. "Good," he said, leaning back, satisfaction evident. "Then we understand each other. You'll politely decline Henderson's invitation and focus on your next performance at Bridgewater. I have some high-profile guests flying in." Victoria Whitley approached and handed Mia a typed letter. "This is the rejection notice," she said softly. "Sign it, and I'll mail it to Ms. Henderson." Mia felt nauseous. She grasped the pen, her fingers quivering. The pen hovered over the paper for a heartbeat that stretched into an eternity. With a sinking heart, she scrawled her name, feeling as though she'd sealed her own cell door. Lockhart rose, crossing to a window. "You're dismissed," he said, voice echoing with finality. Despite Lockhart's intimidation, a quiet rebellion grew within Mia. She stayed up late in the piano room, practicing not just the pieces Lockhart dictated, but also secret compositions of her own. She'd scribble them on scraps of paper, tucked away in a shoebox. A plan formed in her mind, sparked by Rachel Henderson's offer. She confided in Eleanor Barnes, the kindly housekeeper. "I can't let him control my life forever," Mia whispered one night, as Eleanor folded linens. "But I can't just walk away without risking my family's well-being." Eleanor's wise eyes shone with empathy. "You need leverage, something that could make Lockhart back off. He holds you with your family's needs and your contract. You must find a way to ensure he can't ruin your reputation or finances if you leave." Mia nodded. "How, though?" A flicker of resolve tightened Eleanor's features. "There are rumors about Mr. Lockhart's business dealings. He's a man who thrives on secrets. If you find something that threatens his image, he might negotiate." The risk was enormous. Delving into Lockhart's private affairs could be like playing with fire. But Mia was cornered. A single misstep, and Lockhart could crush her. Perhaps the same could be said for him if she found the right angle. She began to observe more carefully. Lockhart sometimes left documents in the piano room while meeting with advisors. Victoria Whitley would bring folders labeled with corporate names: Lockhart Holdings, LB International Bayview Trust. Mia pretended not to notice, focusing on her piano keys. She gleaned bits of conversation about property acquisitions, hush money deals, and discreet partnerships. She didn't understand all of it, but she carefully logged each detail in her mind. An idea took shape. If Lockhart was funneling money through hidden channels or had made enemies, perhaps there were records. She thought of approaching Adam Foley or even Victoria, but both were too loyal or too frightened to help openly. Then she remembered a fleeting mention of one name, Matthew Blackwell Lockhart's former accountant, who had abruptly left the estate under mysterious circumstances. Mia made discreet inquiries among the staff. One gardener vaguely recalled Blackwell used to meet with Lockhart late at night in the study, then left in a hurry last year after a heated argument. No one had heard from him since. If anyone possessed knowledge that could challenge Lockhart's hold, it might be Blackwell. But how to find him? The staff refused to provide details, whether out of ignorance or fear. Mia thought about reaching out to Rachel Henderson. She was well connected and might have resources to locate someone. But she was also aware that any misstep could alert Lockhart. Her phone was likely monitored. Victoria Whitley, with her impeccable efficiency, would surely notice any suspicious activity. Still, Mia couldn't remain passive. Night after night, she spun scenarios in her mind, balancing the risk to her family against her suffocating reality. She thought of her mother's tired eyes and her sister's eager face. Could she subject them to an uncertain future because she hungered for artistic freedom? Yet the question remained, could she live with herself if she stayed under Lockhart's thumb forever? Lockhart announced yet another grand event, this time a fundraiser supposedly for an educational non-profit. He summoned Mia to the library to discuss her repertoire for the evening. But the conversation veered into dangerous territory. "I've heard murmurings," he said, swirling brandy in a crystal glass. You've been talking to staff asking about my business. Care to explain? Mia's heart pounded. I ask the staff things because I live here most of the time. I was just curious how everything works. A half-truth at best delivered in a trembling voice. Lockhart's lips twitched in a semblance of a smile, but his eyes were flat. You'd be well advised to keep your curiosity in check. Focus on your performance. This event is crucial. We'll have donors, politicians, even potential partners from overseas. I've instructed Victoria to coordinate your music choices. Stick to the approved set list. No deviations. Mia stiffened. Of course, sir. Good. He took a sip of brandy. You may leave. Walking away, Mia felt the noose tighten. Lockhart suspected her. She had to act soon, or her chance to break free would vanish. She only hoped Rachel Henderson could help. Under cover of darkness, Mia penned a letter short and urgent. Rachel, I need your help. There's something I must find an accountant named Matthew Blackwell. He worked for Lockhart, but left under strange circumstances. I believe he may have information that can free me. If you can locate him, please do. I'm at great risk. Mia. She sealed the letter and handed it to Eleanor, who promised to deliver it discreetly to one of Rachel's trusted aides. Mia prayed it wouldn't be intercepted. Every step felt like a precarious tightrope walk. The night of the fundraiser arrived with lavish fanfare. The mansion glimmered with lights reflecting in the lake, as if a second world floated beneath the water's surface. Mia wore an elegant sapphire gown, courtesy of Lockhart's tailor, feeling like a fragile doll. High-profile guests mingled, sipping expensive wine, discussing philanthropic ventures. A speech about the importance of arts education served as the event's moral veneer, but Mia suspected it was little more than a smokescreen for Lockhart's networking spree. When she took her seat at the grand piano, the hush fell again. She launched into Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, weaving sorrow and longing through each note. The music was met with rapt attention. Next came a lively Rachmaninoff prelude, the complexity of the piece demonstrating her technical skill. Applause thundered. She glimpsed Lockhart in the front row, surrounded by donors wearing a triumphant smile. But Mia had one more piece. Against Lockhart's explicit orders, she decided to deviate from the set list for her finale. She played an unnamed piece she'd composed, a bold, stirring piece that conveyed defiance, heartbreak, and desperate hope. In each crescendo, she poured her frustration at Lockhart's stranglehold. In each gentle passage, her longing to be free soared. Lockhart's eyes narrowed, but he couldn't stop her mid-performance without causing a scene. The audience was mesmerized. When the piece ended, applause shook the rafters. Some guests rose to their feet, demands for an encore swirling. Mia bowed, locking eyes with Lockhart. His face was inscrutable, but tension crackled in the air. Backstage, she exhaled shakily, expecting Lockhart's wrath any moment. But the night ended without confrontation. He stayed occupied with donors closing deals or forging alliances. Mia suspected he was saving the anger for a private venue. Her suspicion was confirmed when Victoria Whitley found her after midnight. "He wants to see you in the study," Victoria said, her voice tight. Mia mustered her courage and followed. The study was dark. Heavy drapes blocked moonlight. Lockhart stood by a low-burning fire, arms folded. His silhouette was menacing against the ember's glow. "You disobeyed me," he said quietly. "You changed the repertoire." Mia took a breath. "My piece was well received." He laughed, a short, humorless sound. "That's not the point. You tested me in front of my peers. I can't tolerate that." His voice cut like a blade, triggering a primal fear in Mia. Yet she stood her ground. I'm not a machine you can program. You promised me artistic freedom. Lockhart's fury flared. He stalked closer, eyes gleaming with anger. Artistic freedom. Don't be naive. I gave you an opportunity you would never have had otherwise. I placed you before the elite. Now you think you can defy me. Mia's voice wavered. Why do you need to control me this much? It's not about the music, is it? It's about power. His laugh was cruel. Everything is about power, Mia. And you, my dear, are dangerously close to losing your privileges. Perhaps you'd like to see how quickly your mother's new treatments end, or how fast your sister's tuition dries up. Tears blurred her vision, fueled by terror and indignation. She opened her mouth to retort, but a knock on the door interrupted. Victoria Whitley entered, face pale. "Sir, you need to see this," she said, handing him a tablet. Lockhart snatched it, scanning the screen. His expression shifted from annoyance to alarm. "What is this nonsense?" he barked. Victoria swallowed hard. "It's all over social media, sir. There's a whistleblower account posting documents that appear to tie you to offshore accounts and questionable transactions under Bayview Trust. Some local journalist picked it up. They claim the source is a Matthew Blackwell." The tablet trembled in Lockhart's hand. Mia's heart skipped Blackwell. Rachel must have found him, or perhaps he acted on his own. Had her message reached him? Lockhart glared at her real fury, igniting in his eyes. "Did you do this?" She shook her head, astounded by the timing. "I didn't. I swear I don't even know him." But maybe he decided to speak out. "This is a coordinated attack," Lockhart roared, ignoring her denial. "You think you can blackmail me?" Panic flared. She realized that Lockhart believed she had orchestrated the leak. This could backfire horribly. Still, a part of her felt exhilaration. If Blackwell's revelations were credible, Lockhart could lose his wealth or face legal scrutiny enough that he might let her go to avoid further scandal. Lockhart advanced on her fists clenched. "You have no idea the damage you've caused. But I won't go down quietly." His tone was menacing. "I'll destroy you if I have to. You'll never play again. I'll see to it personally." Tremors of fear rippled through Mia, but a surge of defiance bolstered her spine. "Go ahead," she said softly. "But if these documents are real, you'll have bigger problems than me. I may just be a pawn in your game, but at least I have nothing to hide. Can you say the same?" For a moment, Lockhart looked like he wanted to strike her. Victoria stood frozen, torn between intervening and staying loyal. Finally, Lockhart let out a curse and spun away, barking orders into his phone to his legal team. The spell broke. Victoria grabbed Mia's arm, leading her out of the study, before the tension snapped into violence. As they fled the scene, Mia realized the scale of what was happening. Lockhart's empire might be teetering. This could be her chance to escape if she survived the fallout. The next 48 hours were a maelstrom of rumors and panic. News outlets began picking up the whistleblower story. Some documents alleged Lockhart was laundering money through shell companies paying bribes to secure lucrative deals abroad. Journalists camped outside Bridgewater Estate seeking comment. Lockhart barricaded himself inside, consulting lawyers and publicists. Staff were told to remain silent or face immediate dismissal. Fear permeated the halls. Mia saw the cracks in Lockhart's once invincible facade. Investors threatened to back out of deals. Donors withdrew from the fundraiser, demanding refunds. The philanthropic veneer he'd so carefully cultivated was crumbling. In this chaos, Mia felt a glimmer of hope. She approached Adam Foley, the head of staff, to request her final paycheck and severance. She'd never been brash enough to demand such a thing before, but the scandal left Lockhart's authority shaken. Foley was sweat-soaked, anxiously fielding calls. "Are you sure you want to leave?" he whispered. "Lockhart is on the warpath, but if you leave now, there's no telling how he'll retaliate." Mia shrugged off her fear. "I can't stay here. Whatever happens next, I need to move on." Foley seemed torn, but eventually he nodded. "Wait here." He disappeared into the accounting office. When he returned, he handed her an envelope. "This is your remaining pay. I added a small bonus unofficially. It's the least I can do." Tears welled. "Thank you," Mia whispered. She gathered her few belongings, sheet music, a change of clothes, and the shoebox containing her compositions. She moved quietly toward the side exit. She feared Lockhart might appear, but the estate was in disarray. No one stopped her as she slipped outside, away from the grand corridors that had once mesmerized and imprisoned her. Outside the gates, a cool wind swept across her cheeks, carrying the scent of damp grass. Dawn light shimmered on the lake, the mansion's reflection rippling in the water. It looked fragile, as though a single stone could shatter its mirror image forever. Mia inhaled deeply, relief mingling with anxiety. She was free from Lockhart, legally perhaps not, but physically removed from his stronghold. The future was uncertain, but she felt a deep resonance within her soul. She'd reclaimed a piece of herself. Her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize flashed on the screen. She answered, tentatively. Mia came a voice. "It's Rachel Henderson. I've been trying to reach you. Listen, I found Matthew Blackwell. He released those documents on Lockhart." Mia's heart soared. "I know. The estate is in chaos." "Good. But there's more. Blackwell wants to meet with you. He says he has reason to believe you were used as a pawn in Lockhart's circle. He might help you finalize your escape from any contractual obligations." Mia swallowed. "Thank you, Rachel. I just left the estate. I'm free, at least for now." Rachel's tone brightened. "Perfect timing. I'm in the city. Let me send a car for you. I'll get you someplace safe, and we'll figure out your next step." Mia closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Thank you. I'll text you my location." Relief mingled with the weight of the unknown settled in her chest. The nightmares she'd endured at Bridgewater might still haunt her, but she had emerged. The gift of music was hers to wield freely. She let out a shaky laugh, realizing she stood on the threshold of a new life, one shaped by her own hands, not by a tyrant's demands. In the end, Maya Sullivan's music soared far beyond the gilded walls where it was first discovered. The moment Lockhart's empire began to crumble, she took her chance to walk away from those suffocating corridors and into a future of her own making. Though the battle wasn't easy, threats loomed, and doubts hovered. Mia's unwavering passion and determination pushed her forward. In exposing his darkest secrets, Lockhart destroyed his own ability to rule unchecked, proving that art, courage, and the truth could shatter even the strongest chains. Thank you for tuning in to this gripping journey of ambition, control, and the unstoppable power of raw talent. If Mia's story moved you, if it reminded you that resilience and integrity can triumph over tyranny, please hit the like button, share this video with friends, and subscribe to our channel. Your support enables us to create more content that sparks hope, defies limitations, and inspires us all to stand up for our dreams. Until next time, keep believing in the power of your own story, and never let anyone silence your true voice.